Hi, boys and girls. Happy Friday. Welcome to our 5th day of virtual learning. We're wrapping up our first week. I hope you've enjoyed the videos so far. Today, we're going to focus on the problems that you completed yesterday in the Nearpod activity. Boys and girls, for those of you that haven't done the previous lessons, please stop here and go back to the other lessons. This is a review for an assessment later today, so make sure that you do the other lessons before you take the assessment. I want to make sure that you're prepared for it and you understand all the concepts. So you're going to recognize these questions from the Nearpod quiz from yesterday's lesson, and I want to go over some of the misconceptions that I saw before you take your assessment today. So question 1, how many of these shapes show parts called eighths? I know that when I'm talking about eighths, I'm talking about a fraction that has a denominator of 8. Okay? And if I take a look at my picture on the right, I see 4 different models. Okay. The first one is one rectangle that's broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. So I would go ahead and say that this one shows eighths. It's broken up into 8 equal parts. Okay. My second one, the next one on the right, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. So that shape is broken up into sixths. Okay. The first circle on the left is broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. So it shows sixths. And then the last circle has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. But does that one show eighths? You're right, it doesn't. It doesn't show eighths because it doesn't have 8 equal parts. Remember, in fractions, our parts have to be equal. So the only shape that shows 8 equal parts, or eighths, is the shape that is circled. So I would pick A1. One shape shows eighths. Question 2. What fraction of the square is shaded? If we take a look at our square, we see that there is one part that is shaded. So that's going to be my numerator. It's the parts that we're counting, the parts that were shaded. So we have one part that is shaded. And my denominator talks about how many total parts there are. Well, we have one part that's shaded, but altogether we have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts to make my square. So my denominator is a 4. So 1/4 is shaded. I do want to take a look at A, because that's a common mistake that students make, 1/3. When students pick 1/3, they pick one part shaded, and then the other part, the denominator, instead of looking at the total parts, they look at the rest of the parts, or the parts that are unshaded. And this is a common misconception, but please remember that the denominator talks about how many parts make one whole. Question 3. Which of these can be used to name point V? Choose 2 correct answers. If you take a look at your picture, you'll see that point V is here. Okay, and we have a 0 and a 1. So we already know that V is greater than 1. It's to the right of the 1 on the number line, so it's bigger than 1. There's extra parts. So let's take a look. The first thing I want to do, boys and girls, is find out what denominator I'm using for my parts. So I'm going to count how many parts there are between 0 and 1. So 1 part, 2, 3, 4. So if I have 4 parts in one whole, then that means that I am working with fourths. Okay, so I know that this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and I know that 4/4 equals 1 whole. So now I'm going to use a mixed number. So I have 1 whole and 1/4, 1 whole and 2/4, 1 whole and 3/4, and 1 whole and 4/4. Well, I know that 4/4 equals 1 whole. So if I have 1 whole and another whole, then that equals 2. So my answer would be A, 2. Question 4, how long is this crayon to the nearest 1/2 inch? Well, I see more than 1/2 inches on my ruler. So let's highlight all the 1/2 inches. I know that if I'm talking about 1/2 inches, then I'm talking about 2 equal parts in 1 whole. So here's my 0 and here's my 1. And that line in between, directly in between, in the middle of 0 and 1 is going to be my 1/2. So I'm going to highlight my wholes and my halves. That's the line in between. This is the line in between the 2 and the 3. This is the line in between the 3 and the 4. And then this is the line in between the 4 and the 5. So that makes it a little easier now for me to see, and I'm going to pick a darker color. Okay. And if I look at my crayon, I can see that it's right here, which is really close to this point. So now we have to figure out what that point measures. Well, we know it's greater than 1 whole. We know that it's greater than 2 wholes. We know that it's greater than 3 wholes. And we know that it's greater than 4 wholes. It's somewhere in between 4 and 5. So if I'm counting by halves, I know that I have 4 wholes, and then this part would be 1/2. So 4 and 1/2 inches. So the correct answer for this one is B. Question 5, what fraction of the shape is shaded? So I have another model and I'm asked for the shaded part. So if I were to write this, it would look like this. The numerator would be the shaded part or parts. And then my denominator would be my total parts for 1 whole. Okay, and that helps me to eliminate making a mistake that I see a lot of children making. So let's take a look. So how many parts are shaded? Well, I see this 1 part shaded. So my numerator is going to be a 1. And then my denominator, how many total parts to make 1 whole? So there's 1 part, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it doesn't matter what order I count it in because I'm still counting the parts that make 1 whole. So I have 6 total parts to make 1 whole. Can you guess what the misconception or what the biggest mistake that children make on this one? Yeah, you're right. A lot of children pick A, and they pick A because they count the shaded part, and then they count the unshaded parts, which are 5. Question 6, what fraction of the shape is shaded? So this is a similar type of question. We have a model. The model shows 3 equal parts to make the whole. So my denominator is going to be a 3. And then it's asking us to count the parts that are shaded. There are 2 parts that are shaded. So my numerator is a 2, so 2/3. So the answer is C. Question 7, how many 6ths were used to make the 2 whole rectangles? I don't want you to be intimidated by the visual model that you see or by all the words. Let's break it down. They're asking for how many 6ths, and they want to know how many of those 6 it takes to make 2 whole rectangles. So if we look over at our model, we see our first rectangle and we see our second rectangle. I know that if I'm talking about 6ths, then I need 6 of them to make 1 whole rectangle. And then if I have another rectangle, I need another 6 parts. So 6 parts plus 6 parts is 12 parts. okay? And if we're counting by sixths, let's count together. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 6/6, 7/6, 8/6, 9/6, 10/6, 11/6, and 12/6. So we need 12/6. So how many of those parts did it take? It takes 12 parts, or 12/6, to complete those two whole rectangles. Question 8. Which fraction equals 1 whole? Well, I know that when I have a fraction that equals 1 whole, my numerator and my denominator are the same number. And the reason is because I have the same amount of parts as I have as many parts to make 1 whole. So let's take a look. If I have 4/6, then I have less parts than I need to make the whole. If I have 6/6, then I have the same number of parts as the parts that it takes to make the whole. But let's check the other two. If I have 0/6, then I have no parts. And if I have 1/6, then I only have 1 part out of 6. So the only one that shows me 1 whole would be my 6/6. I have all the parts that I need to make 1 whole. Question 9. The numerator is the number of a fraction that is on the top or bottom. Well, I know my numerator is the number that is on the top, and it refers to how many parts I'm counting. And question 10, the denominator is the number of a fraction that is on the top or bottom. Well, if my numerator is on the top, then my denominator is on the bottom. And my denominator tells me how many equal parts it takes to make 1 whole. Okay, boys and girls, so if you feel confident about the problems that we just reviewed, you're going to go on to your Nearpod assessment. If you still have some questions, you can either rewatch the video or you can reach out to me for additional help. I only want you to do the Nearpod assessment once you feel confident. Okay, if you receive your assessments in school in English, you're going to use the code that is bold on your screen in blue, and it's LCASR. Ok, meninos e meninas, se vocês entenderam os problemas que nós fizemos agora, eu quero que vocês vão fazer o vosso exame no Nearpod. Se não entenderam, vocês podem ver o vídeo outra vez ou podem mandar uma mensagem a mim ou a Miss Souza e nós explicamos mais antes de vocês fazerem o exame no Nearpod. Okay? Se vocês são confidentes e que sabem os problemas, vocês vão ir ao código que está em rosa, DTEPB. Mas é só para os meninos e meninas que normalmente têm o exame em português. Ok, niños, si ustedes entendieron los problemas que terminamos de hacer, pueden ir a hacer su examen en Nearpod. Okay. Si no entendieron, no lo hacen, yo quiero que me manden un email a mí o a Miss Coro y nos vamos a explicar un poquito más. Si entendieron y ustedes normalmente reciben el examen en español, grupo 1, pueden hacer el código que está en verde, UMOJG. Okay, boys and girls, please work hard on this. It is going to count as an assessment grade. Okay, I wish you lots of luck, but if you understood these problems, you will do really, really well. Okay, good luck. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.